Welcome to EDSE 510, Foundations of Special Education at the University of Northern Colorado. My name's Anna Vick, and I will be your instructor in this course. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. I have here displayed on the screen the course schedule document, so we're going to be walking through that. There will be a video lecture provided like this one for each unit as the unit opens, and it's very important to take the time, set aside that time to watch these video lectures. We'll be talking through some of the major assignments in our course, checking in on some key concepts, and they'll probably answer a lot of questions that might come up for you. So I will encourage you to check these out, and thank you for joining me for this one. It's Unit 1, so this is the first week of our course. And the course schedule document that I have pulled up here can be found here in Canvas in the course shell. Here on the left-hand side, you'll see syllabus. And if you click syllabus, this will give you an enormous amount of very important information for our course this semester. First, you'll see the syllabus, and syllabus obviously is an important document with information on required texts, but I would argue that the most frequently accessed and used document that you will be needing on this page is the course schedule. You'll also see my faculty introduction, which I've included here for your review. Would love to get to know all of you a bit more via the discussion board this week, so please do post early and often. That's a great way for us to connect, especially in this online environment. So to access the course schedule that I had just had pulled up a moment ago, you'll click this document, and you will see the various units in our course and some really important information. So you'll see here on the far left, there are a couple 2-week units. You'll see Unit 5, Unit 7, Unit 9, Unit 10, and the course concludes with Unit 11. The note up top is also an important piece of information. The course units will begin on a Monday and then end on the following Sunday. That is for the 1-week units. And so all the discussion posts would then be due on Wednesday night. So you'll have 3 days to get your initial post in and a minimum of 2 responses to your colleagues by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. as the week is concluding. So that is the schedule for a week-long unit. And then you'll scroll down to the 2-week units for more information on the deadlines and timing required for discussion posting. So please do check out those 2-week unit boxes here under dates and deadlines for discussion requirements, but know that in the majority of units, which are 1-week units, you'll just be posting once with your initial response by Wednesday. You will want to cite a source in APA format. We're using the 7th edition. So cite at least one source to support your statements, and then a minimum of 2 responses to your colleagues. And this is a great way, as I mentioned, for us to engage and get to know one another. So put some time and effort into these discussions. We really get from them what we put into them. Another important note, you'll see there in red that Canvas will not be accepting work past the deadline. So if you are encountering a situation in which you'll need to have a late submission, you can let me know of your circumstance and we'll get a plan and a deadline in place to ensure that we're set up for success. Of course, it's very important to meet deadlines in a graduate level course just because we are moving at a fast pace. There's a lot of work to be done, and you'll get the most out of the course if you're on track with our schedule. So bear that in mind. You'll see that along with the due dates and deadlines for the course, the topics are listed here. The assigned reading will be listed. And the most important column, arguably, of this whole document would be activities or assignments, because this will let you know what you need to get done for each of the units, whether 1-week or 2-week. For example, this week we're doing our welcome and some basic special education concepts. A lot to dive into, as you'll see. Our assignment, or the scored submission that you'll be doing this week, is just our discussion board. Same thing for next week. We've got a discussion board, but we also have an article review assignment, which will be due in Unit 2. So as you proceed, you'll notice that Unit 3 has a discussion board along with this assignment. But there are some units that will not have discussion boards. For instance, Unit 4, you'll notice Unit 5, it's a 2-week unit and there isn't a discussion board, but there's a very large and a rather lengthy and comprehensive assignment, the interview assignment. So speaking of the assignments, you can access their descriptions and the requirements within the Canvas shell. There's also information in the syllabus, but the Canvas shell will give you the most detailed information regarding the rubric, grading criteria, and at this time you can access the entire course and all of the content within the Canvas shell. So consider planning ahead and getting a really good feel for what will be going on in our course. This class really is fundamental special education course, talking about compliance, law, free and appropriate public education, the least restrictive environment, many important things that we'll be going over that will really build your practice and support you in continuing with that going above and beyond approach for students with exceptionalities. And therefore, planning ahead is really good. You don't want to come to the point of being crunched with a deadline. We've all been there. So it's a great opportunity for you to look ahead. If you hit a week where things are a little quieter, for instance, with a discussion board or a course break, that's a good time to look ahead and just see what's going to be expected of me and what will I need to do in our class. So you'll see another assignment. You be the judge. Moving along down, there's a philosophy paper, which is 100 points, and that's nearing the end of the course, discussion. So a couple major assignments and then frequent discussions, but not for every unit. So if you click the Home tab, you will see several different icons, but the same information can be accessed under modules. And I myself like modules because we can pull open and expand each one, as you'll see I just did by clicking that, and then you can scroll up and down and see the content. So you'll also notice some of the units are split into parts. This is not because one part needs to be done before the other part or is more important than the other part. This is simply a way to organize the unit because there is so much information and it just keeps it from becoming really lengthy, and we can categorize it a little bit. So both parts, Unit 1, Part 1, and Unit 1, Part 2, are equally as important for your access throughout the week. So you'll notice that each unit will begin with this outline, a graphic organizer, talking about our objectives for that unit, the rating assigned, and the assignments that we're grading. And here's a little reminder regarding the article review, which we were just looking at here for Unit 2, will be required next week. Speaking of which, all the assignments will be due on the final day of the unit, in which they are listed at 11:59 p.m., and that's always Mountain Standard Time. So you've got that outline, the graphic organizer, and then we're really diving into the course content, the main areas of focus and objectives. There are some written lectures for you. We've got 7th edition APA format requirements, some resources for you. I'll go back here. Regarding that APA, you can find under modules. So you scroll all the way down to the bottom here in Canvas and click APA resources. So please do reference that. However, back up here for Unit 1, you'll see a couple website field trips. Here's a brief written lecture, so take your time reviewing that, and that'll give you some of an introduction. We are focused on some key concepts this week, such as person-first language. And one might think that this is a pretty straightforward, commonly known and understood concept, but honestly, as we probably have all experienced, some people unfortunately still do not comply with the use of this type of language. So an example, as you'll see many in this article provides several links here, this PDF file. You'll also see this chart here. An example would be a word that was frequently used before was autistic, and people would be described as autistic. And now we know that it's absolutely not the appropriate phrase that we use in the field. Instead, we start with a people-first language. We're saying a person with autism, or a person on the autism spectrum, or an individual with a diagnosis of autism. So this second little chart here, this PDF, provides some really good examples of the way that we would now speak. Wheelchair bound is a phrase that is really concerning and problematic, but unfortunately is still fairly frequently used. Or you might hear people in the field throwing around phrases such as a sped kid. And even if they don't mean to be harmful, that kind of language really is, and it perpetuates the culture that causes problems for students with exceptionalities, for their providers, and ultimately for self-determination, self-advocacy, and success for all learners, and inclusion. So this kind of language is really important, and those are some of the resources that are provided to you just as we get a jump start on course content in Unit 1. So as you scroll down, you'll see a couple website field trips. Wright's Law, if you're not yet familiar, please get familiar with Wright's Law. It is a wonderful website full of legal resources related to special education. Lots of information on case law and just the IDEA in general. Here is a Stanford article regarding the history of individuals with disabilities. Got the graphic organizer for part 2. This has focus on a couple other topics. So there's an article provided to you on family advocacy. And hang on to any of these articles if they stand out to you as particularly helpful or useful. That's what they're here for. So feel free to save them for your own use in the future and for your reference. Parents advocating for their children. Several articles provided. And then here is a website for you as well, and that's the Colorado Special Education Advisory Committee. So these are just some good foundational places to get started. You can open that link in a new window. FERPA obviously is an essential part of the work that we do in special education because we are focused on the value of privacy. Sharing confidential information about a student can have some very problematic consequences for everybody involved. So take this seriously, please. I know it's easy to start to talk about your students because they're a big part of your life. But a strong understanding of FERPA is essential for practice in special education. There is a comparison document here for several different areas of law related to disability and special education. So I would encourage you to check that out as well. And several articles are provided for you related to ethics in special education. And we all know that special education ultimately is the most ethical approach. And what I mean by that is individualized plans and supports for all learners so that any student can access full potential academically, socially, emotionally, and functionally in preparation for post-secondary living. And so that's what this section is focusing on, is how can we practice ethically in order to facilitate the ethical work of special education and to do right by students each and every day as providers and figure out what that looks like. Another article regarding partnering with families, that's a major area of focus for us. And then we're diving into the Unit 1 discussion. So an article is provided to you here. You're going to describe an ethical dilemma. And if you've not experienced one yet, you can select one from the article. It's essential that we cite sources in our discussions in APA format, and that is 7th edition, to support our statements. This moves our discussion from just a chat or a conversation into an evidence-based foundational conversation that we can have that will transfer our learning and our research into our practice. So be sure to do that source citation. And then the minimum of 2 responses to peers that are required. We want to share your perspectives on the ethical dilemmas that they choose and the information they share about approaching or solving the dilemma. You don't have to cite only content that comes from within our course. You can cite content from outside our course as long as it's from a valid and reliable source. That's a really great place to start, is by sharing the resources that you already have, and then we can all benefit. So I look forward to working with all of you, and please reach out with any questions. Have a wonderful week.